Someone gave me a fun story the other day. It was over in Afghanistan, I think somewhere, and the Taliban, an Arab, was running away. And came across, according to the story, a Jewish man who had a little stand there and a table full of neckties. This man has been going across the desert. He's dying of thirst, and he says to the Jew, "Do you have a glass of water? I'm dying." And the Jew said, "I don't have any water. I have a necktie. You want neckties?" "No, I don't want a necktie, you idiot. I need water. I'm going to die." "Well, I don't have any, but my brother has a hotel over those dunes, maybe 3 miles away. Maybe he can give you some water." The man trudged away. 3 or 4 hours later, came crawling back over the sand dunes. And the Jewish man said, did you find my brother's place?" "Yes, I found it all right." "Did he let you in? Did you get some water?" "No." "They wouldn't let me in without a necktie." So he had to come back and get a necktie. So we tell these stories, all wrestling with the issue. What does it take to get into heaven and not go to hell? Another one someone gave me is a cute story. There was a group of people going on a tour through heaven, all from one church. And as they were going through the tour of heaven, the angel was taking them from room to room to room. All of a sudden they came to a room that was filled with clocks. And he said, "What is this?" "Oh," he said, "these clocks are hooked to different individuals on earth. For every individual on earth, there was a clock. And every time they sin, the clock moves a little bit." So they said some of the clocks were going slow, some of them were going a little faster. So they looked around and found different people's clocks. Finally, they could not find the pastor of their church, senior pastor, and they said, "Where's our pastor's clock?" And then someone said, never mind, don't worry. Some of the other angels took it to their room. They're using it for a fan." So we have some fun with this. Some people sin more, some people less, but every clock is moving. The Bible says all have sinned. So how are we going to get into heaven where heaven is going to be perfect? I lived for a number of years in Chicago where Michael Jordan was the king. I assume you've heard of Michael Jordan. Every Saturday night I could come home from work pastoring and preaching, and here would be Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Every game did something that was just spectacular, and you would say, "How did he do that?" And they would come to the end of games many times where he would take the ball by himself when they needed a basket to win the game. And the rest of the team would just get out of the way. It'd be basically Michael Jordan 1-on-5. The whole stadium standing, all of us watching. And Michael Jordan would somehow find a way to score the final basket as the buzzer went off. But what was interesting, whenever Michael Jordan would do that to win another world championship, 6 world championships while we were there, not just Michael Jordan would stand cheer. The whole team would stand there and dance on the tables like they were the world champions. What did they do? Nothing. Michael Jordan did it. And 20,000 people would be there in the Chicago Bulls Stadium, all standing and cheering as if they did something. And then all 8 million of us in Chicago would just sort of walk a little taller in the world. We were world champions. We did nothing. It's all Michael Jordan. You sort of have that story in the Bible with David and Goliath, where Goliath said to Israel, "If David wins, then we will all be your slaves. But if I win, you all have to be our slaves." The whole future of everybody was at stake in this battle between the two. And maybe it's something like that between Christ and Satan. You've seen the movie by Mel Gibson called The Passion. They invited all of us pastors down here to Saddleback in Irvine to see a preview. Mel Gibson was there, and they saw the movie. Incredible story of the story of Christ fighting this battle, and the demon is there, and there's a place where Satan actually was a woman acting the part of Satan, I found out later. And there's inciting the crowd. And at the cross, there's this huge drama between good and evil. And we believe that every demon in the universe was there in this cosmic great controversy battle between Christ and Satan. And the universe was at stake in whoever won. Christ came out of the grave. Satan thought he had him there. He had the Roman guard. They had the stone rolled there. But God rolled a stone away, and the Roman guard were basically paralyzed. And Christ came walking out of there, and he said, Revelation 1:17 and 18, behold, I was dead, but now I am alive forever and ever, and I have the keys to heaven and hell, the power over death. Christ is the one with the keys. Well, I have a little parable I've told around the world. I speak in college audiences. I just imagine a group of us from my university, La Sierra University here in Riverside. We were down at the coast of California, Los Angeles, in what is called Venice Beach, famous place. And they play basketball down there on a court right on the beach. We're walking along, and here's a group of them playing. All of a sudden, the game is over. One team leaves. The other team has no one else to play. And they look at us. You guys want to play with us? All right, we thought we were pretty good. So we get put our other clothes and jackets on the side, and then we come out onto the court, and they say, okay, we're going to play for everything now. 1 point a basket till 10. We look at them, and every one of them is taller than our tallest player. We thought, well, maybe this is a bad idea. No, we've made a commitment. We've got to play. So we begin to play. We take a shot. They block the shot. They're very tall. They come down and they dunk the ball on us. 1-0, 2-0. In about 2 minutes, it's a 9-0. Hopeless. We call timeout. We're about to lose. And we get together in our little huddle and we say to God, God, send some help. We are in trouble here. We finish our prayer. Here's someone standing next to us, very tall, 6'6", shaved head. He says, you want me to play for you? Yes. Yes, we need help. Come play on our side. He goes and takes the warm-ups off. And there underneath, red and black, number 23. It's Michael Jordan. What do? We're not stupid. We give him the ball. Here, you shoot. We'll rebound. And so Michael Jordan goes through and he dunks the ball on them, 1-9. They come back and they shoot for the last shot. Michael Jordan rises up and blocks the shot. You get the idea. 1-0, 1-9, 2-9, 3-9. He has every shot in the world. He makes every shot and he blocks every one of their shots. Hope you'll think through my little parable here. They begin to get mad pretty soon. They begin to scratch and bite and hit. Pretty soon blood is flowing. We get down to 7-9, 8-9. Pretty soon nothing else is happening on the beach. Everyone has stopped. They ring the court to watch this drama between the best player they've ever seen. Comes down to the 9-9. They come down to take the final shot. He rises up and blocks it again. Comes down and he makes a final shot. And we watch as the ball arcs through the sky and it drops through the net. And we win 10-9. We didn't do anything. All we did was give him the ball and stand out of the way and cheer for him. It was him alone. But we win the game. Well, you can guess everyone was cheering, standing ovation. No one had ever seen anyone like that before. And then the moment that I treasure was when the other team, as they gathered up their things and they walked off the court, they bowed and they said, he's the best there ever was. You get the idea of the parable. And when Christ at the cross had this one-on-one battle with Satan for all the marbles, everything was at stake. And when Christ won, we all won. Christ is the all-star. He is the champion. He's the best there ever was. And someday at the end of the controversy, every being in the world is going to bow and cheer for him. And even those who lose and lost and will be lost forever will bow and said, he was the best there ever was. Over the years, I've drawn a little chart for young people and baptismal classes I was giving. Draw it on the board. A little chart. Jesus is the door. I draw a little door there in the middle. Jesus says, I am the door. John chapter 10. Jesus makes these incredible claims. I'm the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the resurrection and the life. These incredible claims. And then he says one, I am the door. I have the keys. I am the door. Whoever enters through me will be saved. What makes him the door out of all the other religious rulers and religious people and other holy books? Because the Bible says, I am the one. I'm the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. Someone gave me a story years ago. As a young man walked in to see his uncle was the preacher. And preacher was working on the sermon. He said, what are you going to preach on this week? Oh, John 18:37. For this purpose came I into the world. Okay, have a good sermon. Went away an hour later, someone came running to the preacher and he said, you got to go to the hospital. Your nephew's had a terrible accident. And so they drove on the way to find out what happened. He had come across a 3-story building. And the building was on fire and 8 kids were trapped on the 3rd floor. Everyone else was out. And so his nephew had gone to the next building with a friend and climbed to the top out a window. And he could not reach over. And so he had his friend hold him by the ankles, and he swung over and grabbed a hold of the windowsill. And then he called for those children, and each of those children had climbed over this human bridge, 3 floors down, climbed over the human bridge and down, 2nd, 3rd, 8. By the time he had held there for 8 children to crawl over him, the flames were singeing his clothes. He could not hold anymore, and he fell 3 floors down. And now he's in the hospital. He's going to die. His uncle walks in the room, and John manages a little thin smile, and he says, for this purpose came I into the world. That's what makes Jesus Christ the door. He is the bridge, the one who died to give us eternal life. Well, I draw this little chart on the wall, blackboard for these kids. I put a door, and then I put a pathway up to the door, and then I put a pathway from there to heaven, to the mansions. Jesus says, I am the door. There are some things you do on the way to the door. You study the Bible, absolutely important. Bible, yes. Not the door. That's how you get to know the door. Prayer, absolutely crucial to live a Christian life. You have to connect with God in prayer, not the door. Thinking, theology, doctrines. I'm on a campus. We say thinking is important. Thinking is dangerous, but not thinking is more dangerous. You have to think. We have to put doctrines together about God. Not the door. Jesus says, I am the door. Once you go through the door, there's another pathway on the way to heaven. There's some things you do after you come to Christ. You will live a godly life. You will keep the commandments. You will help old ladies across the street. You will go on mission trips. You will give offerings. Yes. Not the door. The great challenge is that you begin to change your life. You begin to be a godly person. And you begin to think that that now is the door that you will go through. No. Jesus says, I am the door. Whoever enters through me will be saved. Well, what does this all mean now? As we think through the implications of this one idea that Jesus is the door to the party. Well, number one, I'm going to say the door is open wide. Revelation 3 verse 8 says, I have set before you an open door. So many of us have grown up with closed doors. If you're not good enough, closed door. Not good enough for God, closed doors. Every time I see a big limo go by me on the highway, big car, black tinted windows, you can't see inside. Just wonder what it'd be like one time to drive in a limousine. It's a closed door. After I told that one time, someone showed up that night. They had a limousine to use for a few days, and they said, here, Dan, we want to have you ride. And so I got to be inside a limousine. Where do you want to go? And I said, well, we went and got some ice cream. I'm sure first limousine in history to go get Baskin-Robbins ice cream. I've been on airplanes flying around the world, and there's always that 747 where they have a little place up on top where I don't know who gets to go up there. Rich people, I guess, up the stairs. I've never been able to sit up there. And they won't let us off the plane until those people come down. Wouldn't it be nice once in my life to go there? I go to Lakers games or other sports events, and they have those luxury boxes. What it would be like to sit in a luxury box. Oh, closed doors. Maybe some of you have had closed doors in life, cannot get in university or other things. Women have glass ceilings they talk about. But with God, Jesus says there is always an open door. The door is always open. You can always go to God. People talk about the unpardonable sin. The unpardonable sin is not that God closes the door on us, it's that we close the door on God. Close our probation is not that God closes the door on us. We close the door ourselves, make our own decisions about God. Number two, Jesus is the last word on what God is like. Sometimes we think that, what do we do with these Old Testament stories, where thousands of people are killed and God tells people to go and destroy all the Amalekites or these other stories. What do you do with these stories? And we have to wrestle with them, but there are solutions to that. But we have to find out that Jesus is the last word on God. Those stories are not the last word on God. Jesus Christ is the last word on God. He is the perfect representation of what God is like. Sometimes people judge God by the church. And because they see Christians who are hypocrites or not godly people, say, okay, I want nothing to do with God. No, you don't go by the church, you go by Jesus Christ. He's the best picture of God. Someone made t-shirts and they said, Jesus Christ, save us from your followers. But sometimes people get in the way. Number 3, freedom from guilt. The moment you walk through the door, the guilt is gone. Which means if you're still carrying some guilt around, you haven't gone through the door clear enough. You're still gone the trail somewhere. The moment you go through the door, guilt is gone. Jesus paid for all of that. Don't carry it around anymore. I was in Chicago as a young pastor years ago. We had a little boy. Someone brought over a walker for him to be in, 7 months old. And he said, be careful, dangerous. We had several-story house. And one time I left the door open to the basement for the dog to come up, and I forgot to close it. Next thing I knew, screaming from down there, a little boy had gone down the stairs upside down. I went down there, grabbed him, blood all over his mouth. Brought him back up, cleaned him up, and then I saw the 2 teeth that had just been cut were missing. I went back down here, they were little teeth. Oh. Called my wife, she had to come back from work. We called the dentist. Can you put these little teeth back in the little boy? No. You're going to have to wait until his permanent teeth come in. The guilt I felt for that was excruciating. I can see sometimes why people want to go get drunk. They just want to silence and just go numb this guilt that is in them for mistakes we've made in our lives. Then my wife took those 2 little teeth and put them in a little box and put them on a glass shelf in a hutch. Every time I had to walk by, there was the guilt again. Well, he's 16 years old now, and his permanent teeth have come in. And I've been given grace. The moment you walk through the door, guilt is gone. Number 4, assurance of salvation. The Bible says, whoever enters through me will be saved. Not maybe, would like to be, hope so, will be saved. So if you're not sure that you have a walk with God and that your name is on the list, then you haven't walked through the door yet. Because the Bible says, whoever enters through me will be saved. We should be absolutely clear about our salvation. We should be as clear about our future as we are about our past. No one can take my past from me. I know my past. I know my name. I knew I grew up in Thailand with missionary family. I went to high school in Singapore. I have a wife and 2 children. I know my past. We should be as sure of our future as we are about our past. It's settled in Christ. Whoever enters through me will be saved. I live close to Los Angeles. My family, we watch the Lakers. Lakers won 3 world championships in the last few years with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Now Shaquille is gone. We don't know as the basketball season gets started here in a little while whether the Lakers will win this year or not. We do not know. But we do know the 3 banners are hanging there in our stadium. And I want to say that your relationship with God should be as clear, more like the banners we already have hanging than the one we don't know. Settle it between you and God. Wonderful story they tell about Albert Einstein. They were giving an award to Billy Graham, and he told this story one time at the White House. Einstein was driving in a train, going from Princeton to someplace to speak. Conductor came down the aisle looking for tickets, and they said, well, he could not find his ticket. Never mind, we know who you are. We're sure you bought a ticket. He walked away, looked around. Einstein still looking for tickets. And the conductor came and said, don't worry. I know you bought a ticket. And Einstein said, I know who I am. What I don't know is where I'm going. He needed the ticket so he would know what station to get off. Billy Graham says, if you hear that I have died, know this, that I know who I am and I know where I am going. Do you know where you're going today? Do you know that you've settled it? Well, let's go on. Number 5, the party begins the moment you go through the door. Matthew 25, the 10 virgins, the moment the 5 virgins and the bridegroom went inside the door, the party began. The party with the bridegroom. So many times in our church, maybe others, we don't really have the party when someone comes to Christ. We wait until they've got all the doctrines. In our church, we have 28 fundamental beliefs. You're waiting for someone to accept all 28, and then we have the party and we welcome them into the church. No. The party begins when you go through the door. The door to the party is Jesus Christ. The moment you accept Christ, the party has to begin. I don't want to give the wrong idea. I grew up in Thailand. I went back to speak a few years ago, speaking to 1,000 kids at our school there, mostly Buddhists. Some of the student missionaries were there after I left. They kept trying to win people to Christ. They finally had 50 kids. They could not join the church officially. Their Buddhist parents were not going to allow that. But they'd fallen in love with Jesus, and they wanted to be baptized into Jesus. Someone was willing to use their swimming pool for that. But of course, the church board had to say, no, we can't accept that. They have to accept all the doctrines. I'm not here to change all our theologies of baptism. I support all those beliefs. But I wish that somehow they could have found a way to have a celebration for those kids. If you love Jesus and you have walked through the door, there should be a party, because you're in the party with the bridegroom. Well, what else should we say? If Jesus is the door, then you live the rest of your lives for Christ. He's the door. We live our lives for Christ. My father was killed a few years ago. My father was a retired pastor. My brothers and I helped build a church in Thailand where we grew up at a school. It's done. It's a beautiful church, gorgeous. I'm very proud of that church. Worked hard to raise the money. Took 100 people over to help finish it. Friday afternoon, all was done. We're on our way to a program. Everyone else had gone to the program, and I was there. I walked by the church I built for my dad. And I know my dad probably just resting in the grave waiting, but I just sort of said metaphorically to him, I said, Dad, it's the best I could do. There's the church. Best I could do, Dad, in your honor. When Jesus is the door, you live the rest of your lives for Him. That's what it means. Well, sometimes people wrestle with an issue called perfection. I came from Chicago where I was pastoring and came to my church now, La Sierra University Church on campus. Just been there a few days, really, and a lady came up to me in the church office and said, Pastor Dan, what do you believe about perfection? Do you believe we have to be perfect before Christ comes or we'll be lost? I didn't know what she believed. I didn't know what this church believed. I was afraid if I said the wrong thing that perhaps they would send me back to Chicago. So I didn't know what to say. I know a lot about the subject of perfection. I studied it a lot when I was in seminary, organized a big panel chapel program one time. But in the thick of the moment, I said, I don't get into the debate anymore about perfection. I just go by this one verse, Revelation 14:4. 144,000, they follow the Lamb wherever He goes. If you follow the Lamb, Jesus Christ, wherever He goes, you will get wherever you need to go. You will pass over. You will make it there. I was in Thailand one time doing a week of prayer, and the principal of the school, a good friend of mine, took me to see some temples. And then he said, Dan, I'm going to take you back to my house on a water taxi. Bangkok is filled with canals. So we went down, we got on one taxi, we got off on another place to change boats. Right at that moment, all of Bangkok seemed to get out of work 5 o'clock and came to this dock. We were hundreds of people on this dock. Here came the boat. My friend got on the boat, but before I could get on, another lady, very tight skirt, tried to very carefully get on the boat. By the time she got on, the boat began to pull away. I thought for myself in a moment, I have got to get on that boat. I don't know how. Yes, I grew up in Thailand. Yes, I can speak Thai. But I don't know where he lives. I don't know how to get there. I have got to be on that boat. There's about 5 feet of brown, muddy water. And I just jumped. And I got one hand on the ceiling roof, and I grabbed that boat, and I fell in. I fell in the lap of that lady. But I was on the boat, and I got back to her house. If you follow the Lamb, you will get wherever you need to go. I believe in living a holy, godly life. I don't worry about perfection. I just follow Christ. You'll get where you need to go. What about the judgment? People are afraid of the final judgment. How are you going to survive the judgment? But Jesus says in John chapter 10, my sheep know my voice. It is not God in heaven who decides you're in and you're out. You're good enough, but you're not. And God in heaven who decides. It is those of us, we decide, do you know the voice of Christ? You can't go by your parents or your grandparents or the pastor. You have to know the voice of Christ yourself. And you'll decide. I was in San Diego one time, heard the story, big San Diego Bay. They were having a race, pastor and some friends I know, sailboat race, when all of a sudden a huge aircraft carrier came right into the bay. That moment the race was over. Half went one way, half went the other way. There was no boats in the middle. Why? Because the aircraft carrier was in the middle. Jesus Christ is the aircraft carrier. He does not decide, okay, you go to the left, you go to the right, you're the sheep, you're the goats. We decide ourselves whether we are with Christ. He is the door. Have you gone through the door? That is the decision. Well, better finish with this story. I was a young pastor, came out of seminary, came to Southern Oregon, outside of Grants Pass, 2 little small churches, bought a house on Friday, simple little house. Got my first sermon, went out to my first church Saturday morning, preached my sermon, and they all said to me, well, we're going to have a social tonight. If you want to come, why don't you come? Well, we were busy, had to change our clothes, had to unpack our house, so I wasn't sure that I should go. At the last minute, I thought, well, it's my first church. You know, we could unpack tomorrow. Never mind. Let's go ahead and go. We changed our clothes, went out there. Drove out to my little country church. Drove into the parking lot, and here was a parking lot full of people. We walked in the door 40 minutes late, and here was the whole crowd, both my churches, all there in one place. It was a party for me. It was my welcome party, and I almost missed it. So I've said for how many years since then, I go to every party there is now. Might be another party for me. The Bible describes heaven as a party. Matthew 25 and the 10 virgins, all 10 virgins wanted to go. Everybody wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to miss out. But only 5 got in and 5 were left out. Someday there's going to be a party to end all parties. There's going to be a party in heaven that will make every party down here be shamed. You want to be in that party? Do whatever it takes to be in that party. There is no party down here worth missing out on that party. Go through the door. Jesus Christ says, I am the door. Go through the party, the door to the party, and we will rock forever with the bridegroom. Don't miss that party. God bless you all.